Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Starlit Shelf, where we celebrate books, stories, and the authors who bring them to life. Today, we have Haley Hamilton here, author of the Elflaine Chronicles. Hello, Haley. Thank you so much for
Hi,
being here.
I'm excited to be here.
I am so excited to have you. I feel like I've known you. Of all the authors that I've talked to, I feel like I've known you the longest because you sent me my first ever free book, and that was
Right?
Ballad of Dawn. I was like, oh my gosh, I finally made it. I am an
Right.
official bookstagram.
I love that.
Well,
So
I'm
fun.
really happy to have you here. And you just released book two. What was the month that you released it?
September.
September. So how has it been since releasing book two?
Oh my gosh, it's been great. I feel like I had a whole different publishing journey this time around, which is funny, because you would think that it would all be the same, but it just isn't ever. We've had like I do special editions, and I've been in conversations with the printers since like August, and things just keep going wrong.
Oh
Like
no.
literally nothing has gone right with this book, and I'm
Oh,
so like sick of them already. Like not
oh,
the publishers, the actual physical books.
oh, okay, okay, okay.
So I'm like so done with these books. I'm like, just get them to the readers. Like I just want to have them so I can send them out. But literally everything that could have gone wrong went wrong with this release. So I'm just kind
Oh
of like,
my gosh.
boo. But the first release was so great. So I'm like, it's just a trade-off.
Yeah, that's interesting. So is it different in like the process, or has it been different with just all the issues coming up?
So there were different things. I think that the whole experience of like writing, editing, all the whole experience with the second book was completely different. And I think it's because, and again, you would think it would be easier because I would know more theoretically.
Hmm. Hmm.
But I think that the first book, and I always tell people this, I feel like I was like a vessel for the first book. Like I was just the person writing the story down.
Oh,
Whereas the second book, it was like pulling teeth trying to get it written. So I think from start to finish, it's just been a whole different experience. Um, and it's funny because after talking to other authors, they also have that experience with their second book where like you think that you would have, like kind of like better, really more, just more experience going into it. But with the first book, the marketing seemed easier. It's all kind of wrapped up in a nice little bow in terms of like, this is my debut novel. It's a Scottish book, like these sorts of things. And then
mhm.
the second book, you're like, how do I advertise this without spoiling it? Like you can't really advertise it the same way as a debut book.
Yeah.
Um, and again, the writing of it was very different because I knew how I wanted the series to end, but I
Hmm.
didn't necessarily know the like whole arc of the second book in terms of what needed to happen at the beginning, middle, and end. Like I had ideas of scenes in my head, but I wasn't sure kind of where I wanted it to, like the pacing of it's harder, I guess,
Yeah.
for a second book, if that
Yeah.
makes sense. And it's also hard, like you're trying to wrap up loose ends, but then also
Mhm.
plant things. So it's a very, very, very different experience altogether.
I was wondering because book one, you said that you felt like a vessel. And I'm wondering if part of that has to do with like the first book is you're inspired, no one really knows that you're doing it. But
Yeah.
book two, people are waiting for it. And so
Yes.
was maybe a sense of pressure something to do with the writing process and how you felt about it?
For sure. It was a whole different type of pressure. It was also, um, again, I had because my experience with the first book was like, I think I'm gonna write a book. Like
Yeah.
it was truly I've never taken a creative writing class. I never like thought that I would, yeah, like I
Right.
have 3 degrees in English and none of it's in creative writing. Like this is not
Okay.
something I ever thought I would do,
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
It really took me by surprise. And so I think that with the first book, it was easy to write because this was just, like I said, a story that came to me.
Yeah.
Whereas the second book, I was like, okay, now I have I've set up all these characters, I've set up all these plot points, I've set up this whole world, and now I have to really like think about it.
Mhm.
So the
Yeah.
writing of it itself like didn't really come as naturally as the first book did.
Okay.
Um, and I think that I was also thinking a lot more about writing techniques and writing strategies. Like again, I had never heard of Save the Cat when I wrote my first book. Like I didn't know any writing strategies at all. I literally completely just went into it with no outline. Like I just wrote the story, and then the second book, I'm
Yeah.
like, wait, there's like people do this on purpose with, strategies. And I'm like,
Right.
wait, I don't know how to do this.
Okay, I'm writing down save the cat for later because I'm going to ask you what that is. But
Okay.
do you mind going into a little bit about what the Elflane Chronicles are about and just give
Yeah.
viewers an overview of the story?
So this is kind of my elevator pitch.
Mhm.
The Elflaine Chronicles is an adult fantasy book. It's set in
Mhm.
Scotland, and it was inspired by Scottish fairy folklore, along with a lot of like the witch trial history in Scotland. So it starts out with a girl who is, or a woman, I should say,
Mhm.
a woman who has done a lot of research into fairy lore,
Mhm.
and she believes that the fairies are real.
Mhm.
And this actually, so and she, the question gets brought up in the first book of, and I think it's in the prologue, maybe even. I haven't like this is probably something that authors actually don't talk about a lot, but like we don't read our books after we write them. Like
Yeah,
they're just
yeah,
they just exist in the world.
yeah.
So I cannot tell you the last time I actually read the first book. Um, but I started doing research on Scottish fairy lore because my husband is from Scotland.
Oh,
And we were
lucky
taking a
you.
trip. I know, right? His name is Jamie. So
Oh,
he's Jamie
stop.
from Scotland. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
I know. People are like, wow, that's coincidence. And I'm like, yeah, I guess so. So anyways, we were planning a trip to Scotland and I'm a researcher by trade.
Yeah.
I mentioned I haven't really taken creative writing classes. My master's degree is in rhetoric and composition. That's what I
Oh,
teach
okay.
at a university.
Oh.
And so I just like to do research and stuff.
Mhm.
And I was doing research on Scottish fairy folklore, on witchcraft, on the witch trials in Scotland before we took this trip. And I kind of had this question in my head of like once we went there, I was like, first of all, the magic, like there's for sure magic here.
Mhm.
And that's kind of that's like the tagline. There's magic still in Scotland.
Yeah, yeah.
And again, that was like pulled straight from the trip that I took. But I started asking the question, what if the fairies are real and we just can't find them?
Mhm.
And that was kind of what inspired this whole book of like, no, this was not fiction. This was oral history.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the main character, Elliday. That was her experience with being a fairy scholar, basically. It was
Mhm.
like, no, the fairy lore is real. And there is an entrance to Elflane, the fairy realm.
Mhm.
Um, and then she finally finds it in the
Yeah.
prologue of the first book.
Yeah.
So that's kind of, so the whole first book is Aelia, Eliday's younger sister, trying
Mhm.
to find a way to get to the fairy realm to find Eliday.
Right.
So that's kind of the whole plot line of the book. And again, there's elemental magic, there's fairies, there's mythical creatures, but it's set in modern day Scotland. And
Mhm.
so, like, all the places that they go in the first book, they're all real places and they're all connected to actual, like, Scottish fairy lore.
Yeah, that's funny because one of the big questions that I had for you is because Elliday and Alia are both scholars and they have done all this research. And I was like, how much research did Haley have to do in
Yeah.
order to write this book? And I mean, even just in the first like half of the book, there's so many creatures mentioned and folklore. And I was wondering just to what extent did you have to research all of this?
So again, it I have, I mean, off the top of my head, probably 30 books on like Scottish folklore, Scottish witchcraft, like the ballads, like all of this stuff that I reference often. I also have done a lot of research into Irish folklore, Nordic folklore, because it all is very interconnected.
Mm.
Um, and so, which you'll see a lot of that in the third book, actually, which I'm really excited about. But yeah, I did a lot of research. And again, this book came out of I didn't do like when I was doing the research originally, it was truly just for like I just wanted to know more.
Yeah.
And so most of the books that I read before writing this book, I didn't read them with the intention of writing a book, if that makes
Mhm.
sense.
Wow.
So a lot of the research kind of really like blended together in my head.
Mhm.
And I had to actually kind of go back to be like, where did I read that? Like, did I make that up or did I read that type of thing?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but a lot of like what the where the origins of the book came from were the fairy ballads. So like the
Mhm.
Thomas Rhymer ballad, that's a real ballad. He was a real person.
Yeah, I
um
was gonna actually research that on my own and be like, is Thomas Rhymer real? Because
he
I
is
couldn't figure
real.
this out. And I was like, I figured most of the mentions and ballads and stuff
Yeah.
were pulled from actual Scottish history, but I wasn't
Yes.
sure.
Yeah, so the ballads, again, like Elliday in the book,
Mhm.
she has translated her fairy ballads, right? And
Yeah.
that again was pulled directly from like my real life where when you if you look up the Thomas Rhymer Scottish fairy ballad, you'll
Yeah.
find it, but it's written in like kind of older like Scottish vernacular.
Okay.
That's not easy to understand. And a lot of
Yeah.
it is actually Doric, which is
Hmm.
a like Scottish dialect, I think. I may be
Okay.
saying that wrong. It may not be a dialect, but I'm pretty sure it's a dialect.
Hmm.
But like my in-laws, they live up in Aberdeen, which is the northeast of Scotland, but they're from the southwest of Scotland. And when they
Okay.
moved up there, my mother-in-law was like, yeah, I had to buy a Doric dictionary because I was like, I just couldn't understand like what people were saying up here. So I bought a Doric dictionary because I kept messaging her, like, what does this word mean?
Yeah.
From the ballad, and she was like, it's Doric, it means this. And I was like, you know what, I just need to get a Doric dictionary. So
Yeah.
I was like transcribing these ballads, and this was again
Wow.
before I wrote this book. Like I did not have the idea to write this book in my head, and I'm like transcribing these fairy ballads. And then I was like, wait, these are again like ballads. When you actually start looking into like the background of where the ballads came from. And the child ballads are where they
Mhm.
were all written down by Francis Child. It was in like the 1800s, I think maybe the 1700s, but he was English and he had collected all these ballads from all over Scotland and England, and wrote them down to the best of his ability, like
Mhm.
to like there's different versions of these because they were all again not written down, they were all oral. And so and again they're songs, like they
Yeah.
were originally songs.
Mhm.
um but it's interesting when you start connecting, like for example, there's a book called like Elves Something and Fauna, but it's by Robert Kirk, I think. And he was a like parish like leader in Scotland when they were trying to, like Christianize northern Scotland. And he was like, yeah, so like all of the people here, they are, talking about how like, oh, well, the fairies made me do this. And he's
Yeah.
like, fairies are not real. And they're like, yes, they are. So he like went using the scientific method to go like discover more about the fairies, and
Mhm.
he basically wrote a book saying they are real 100%, and I have like scientific proof of this. um Very, very interesting book. It is like super cool. And again, this was in like the peak of like religious
Yeah.
persecution of
Yeah.
magic, basically.
That's
And
interesting.
so when I was reading all of these books alongside the ballads, I was like, what if the ballads were history and weren't just mythology, like they were oral history. And so
Yeah.
again, that's kind of where these books came from. So like the ballads are all real. Elliday transcribed them, but really I transcribed them. So
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
the ballads that are in the book are my transcriptions. Like those
Yeah.
are my interpretations of the ballad from the older
Wow.
Scottish language. And then same with like for example, when they go to Earlston, and they're like they go to Thomas Reimer's,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
the tower, and they go to the stone. That's a real stone, and the inscription that's on the stone is the inscription that's in the book. So like it's all like, and that's where I'm like, I think that's what I love about this story is that you really could actually go to these places and you're like, what if it is a fairy entrance? What if
That,
Thomas Rhymer did meet the fairy queen? You know, like
yeah,
like this is
no,
it's all stuff where I'm like, this is real. Like this is all real.
that is so okay. So my heritage is Irish and Scottish. So I already feel like drawn to that area. But little Sarah was obsessed with fairies. And I mean,
Yes.
obviously, I still am in a way. But when you're talking about all of this mythology, I'm wondering, is this still a prominent belief among the Scots that these actually are valid and have truth behind them? And that is this mythology still like a belief system that some people there still think that these have truth to them?
Yeah, I so in my again, and this is just my experience, it would be interesting to get like again my mother-in-law, to talk to
Yeah.
her about this, which maybe I'll ask her these questions when she's here.
Yeah,
They're
that would be
coming to
awesome.
visit in December.
Yeah.
Um, but there is a lot of like really like fairy belief, magic belief.
Mhm.
Like there is a book actually that I'm reading right now called, I think it's called The Highland Seer.
Hmm.
But it's again a woman who's like, yeah, I am, a witch basically, and I like have magic, and I speak with the Kaliak, like who is the goddess of winter. Like, so there's like, so
Interesting.
these beliefs are definitely very deep seated, I think.
Yeah.
Um, and again, they were so deep. This was the most interesting thing to me that came out of a lot of my research, and this is where this was the question, or this was the book where I was like, this there had to like this has to be real 100%. So during the and I think the book is called like Scottish, it's like Scottish witchcraft or Scottish fairy belief, I can't
Mhm.
remember. And I can send you a list of all these books because
Yeah, please.
they're
I
so
want to be convinced
interesting.
that fairies are real. I would
It's all
love that.
nonfiction, like that. It's the best.
I love it. Oh,
So in this book, the scholars who are researching witchcraft. So this was interesting. They were not researching fairy lore. They were researching witchcraft in like the Scottish witch trials.
yeah.
But it's a book about Scottish fairy belief.
Okay.
So they were researching the Scottish witch trials, and they uncovered um, different transcripts from the trials
Okay.
themselves.
Yeah.
Again, Scotland is where we get our judicial system from. So they had the like, a jury, they had a
Mhm.
judge, they had again someone taking notes. So like all of these are like legal transcripts, right? They're not
Okay.
like it wasn't like a journal or a newspaper. It was the legal transcript of the trial itself.
Interesting.
Um, and again, they had lawyers, they had prosecutors, like defense attorney, like they had all the same things that we have. So
Mhm.
it's all very like familiar in that sense. But what was crazy is that they were reading these transcripts, and again, legal transcripts from the like person taking notes during the trial, right? Of basically these witches who were on trial for witchcraft, and their testimony was that, well, yes, I'm a healer in the village, and yes, I did this and this, and yes, this person's my enemy, but I am not actually responsible for this specific action that I'm being
Mhm.
accused of, because the fairies made me do it. And in the transcript, the jury is like, yeah, that sounds like something a fairy would make you do, and they were acquitted. Like they
Wow.
were literally like a fairy involvement was enough, like it was that deep seated to where in a legal trial that
Wow.
was enough of a like thing to get them
That's
acquitted from
crazy.
witchcraft. Like, and that's
Wow.
where like I was reading this book, and I think I read that section like three times, and I was like, there's literally no way. Like there's no way that that is a legitimate like testimony. Yeah, the fairies made me do it, and then they're acquitted of witchcraft. I was like, these things cannot coexist. Like there's just no way. And again, the more that I of course then was like, not that I didn't trust these scholars, but I was just
Yeah.
even more invested in it. So I
Yeah.
started looking up the trial transcripts, and it's true. And I was like, this is insane. So again, in Scotland, it was literally so deep seated, like these beliefs were, that in a legitimate courtroom, a jury is saying, you're right, that was not witchcraft, that was fairy involvement. So like, be on your way.
That is so crazy. I
Yeah,
wonder how many women were saved by fairies.
right?
Like how
Yeah,
many women didn't have to be burned or hung? Well, I don't know what the
yeah.
I don't know what the
They did all the things.
all sorts of things. But yeah, like I wonder how many women, and it's like on one hand, it's are they using it as a scapegoat, right?
Yeah,
Like this wasn't me, it was the fairies. But
right.
at the same
Or was it?
time, like it was enough of an excuse or
Yeah,
a alibi
yeah,
for the jury to acquit them.
yeah.
So yeah, that's insane. That's
I know.
crazy. It
Well,
really
and
is.
again, it made me think, and that's why they're, in my book, the witches and the fairies are that's why they're tied, because there was clearly this like involvement in Scotland of like they interact like the witches
Yeah,
and the fairies do. So I'm like, yeah, how cool would it be in this book if like again the fairies are involved, the witches are involved, and it kind of like when I was conceptualizing it, um it kind of gave a reason for the witch trials.
yeah,
Like it gave a reason for like, yeah, as soon as the realms were sealed, um the humans now like were like able to basically, you know what is the word I'm looking for, accuse people of witchcraft because now the fairies were no longer involved.
yeah,
You know what I mean? So I was like, what
yeah.
if these are connected? Like, what if
That's
these events are connected?
interesting. That's
Yeah.
so
So
cool. You have an amazing mind. I love the way it works.
thank you.
So I have a question. This is just now a personal question. I'm wondering, did you get the Order of the Knights from actual texts, or is that something that you came up with?
So the Order of the Knights was more so inspired from Arthurian legends, and that's
Oh,
also
okay.
something I was kind of like, again,
Yeah.
as a little side rabbit trail
Yeah.
researching was the knights or the order, like King Arthur's knights.
Okay.
Um, and it's funny because the Knights of the Order, that kind of I can't actually remember why I came up with that, but I what I wanted was for their, because I think what I don't, and it's not that I don't like it, but what I always wanted from these kind of fairy stories that we read in the genre was I wanted witches to be, and I think that this was part of my inspiration for this too, was for witchcraft and witches to be like reclaimed
Hmm.
in power. Like,
Yeah.
we're no longer like, we're like, let's move beyond persecuting. That's also why it was funny because I had a reader like message me or something, and they were like, hey, yeah, hey, I really liked your book, but like, I don't know if you noticed this, but like, you kept calling Reed a witch when he's a wizard. And I was like, no, I did that on purpose. Like,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
didn't just like mess that up for the whole book.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
again, I did it because I want, uh, again, I like, to me, the like gendering of the word, I just was like, no, we're going to reclaim this. It is like a witch is someone who does magic. Like
Mhm.
this was, I didn't want it to be gendered because I'm like, no, like one, men can also be witches, but two, like we're claiming the one word and we're calling all like people who do magic witches.
Yeah.
And so, and again, kind of bringing some of that power back to the people, like, because they were like persecuted for so long. And I'm like, this
Mhm.
is crazy. Like, let's give them some power back. And again, thinking about like fairies kind of being all powerful, I'm
Mhm.
like, I think that they should have some limitations. Like
Yeah.
they're maybe stronger and faster and live longer, but the
Mhm.
witches are the ones with the magic. So like in order for them to team up, what do you get from each other?
Yeah.
And in this case, it's like the witches are protecting the fairies from the darkness because they
Mhm.
have more magic
Yeah.
and they can do stuff that the fairies can't. So
Yeah, that's really cool. I also really like that Reed. So Reed is the witch in the Elflaine Chronicles, the male witch. But I think that in like pagan beliefs, there's a god and a goddess, right? There's
yes,
like it's like the duality thing. But Reed, almost every time he like does an exclamation of some kind, he says, "Thank the goddess." And I'm like, he's
yeah,
always only talking about the goddess. And I was like, that's kind of cool. I kind of like,
yeah. Well, and so the goddess, and again, it's maiden mother crone.
Yes. Yes.
So it's like the three-headed goddess is the goddess of witches.
Yeah.
And so, and again, it's going to be interesting. There's going to be more about the kind of goddesses in the third book. It was really interesting. This may be switching topics too much, but like it was really interesting actually. Again, this my brain is like a rabbit trail.
No, it's mine too. It's okay. It's all good.
Yeah, we're like jumping from
It's
thing to
fine.
thing. But the goddesses, or no, what I was gonna say was it was interesting writing the second book because,
Mhm.
and you've obviously started the second
Mhm.
book, so I
Mhm.
won't spoil anything because I don't know how
Yeah.
far you are. But it was interesting writing the second book because it almost felt like I was writing a second first book
Oh,
because you are,
yeah. No,
you know what I
absolutely.
mean?
Yeah,
Like
you're
you're
shifting
introducing new
sides.
characters.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you're in a different world. So it was
Yeah.
like really interesting where I was like, I mean, this book could potentially be 700 pages, but I was like, I'm going to keep it kind of not simple, but like I'm going to stick to the story that I want to tell in this book and bring in even more world building in the third book because I feel like there were certain things that have to be established in this book
Yeah.
that again it like I feel like it could read almost like a first book in a lot of ways.
Mhm. Yeah, no, I am loving this book so much so far. I love Ella Day. Actually, one of the next questions that I had for you was which character or scene was your favorite to write and why? So I have this question for you, but I just saw a reel where it's you and your sister, and you were talking about the differences between you. And so you were like, and you put it in your book. And I was wondering who's who? Who do you
Yeah.
relate the most to?
So I did a lot of character trait swapping in this
Okay.
book.
Yeah, yeah.
And so one of the reasons why, so again, so I think that normally older sisters are seen as like the more responsible, they're going to keep things together, they're going to hold it all together. And then younger sisters are a little bit like more unpredictable, a little wild,
Mhm.
like kind of scary, like that sort of thing. And again, me and my sister was interesting because we're 6 years apart. I'm the oldest, she's the
Okay.
youngest. We have a brother too who's in the middle. But I think in a lot of ways we have like a lot of my traits are more classic younger sister traits, and a lot
Mhm.
of her traits are more classic older sister traits. So I
Okay.
kind of did a lot of swapping up, and that's another thing that a reader told me. Um, they're like, I think that like you keep saying that Elodie is the older sister, but like she's clearly not. Like she's clearly the younger sister with how impulsive she is, and like, how like, blah blah. And I was like, well, again, there's a lot of things that I do that I think are more like younger sister traits. And again, I feel like for older sisters, like my original dedication for the second book was going to be something to do with um like for all the eldest daughters
Mhm.
who are sick of being like typecast
Yeah.
basically.
Yeah.
Um because again, I'm like, I would love to be more like free to be a little bit more chaotic, and so I think that again, a lot of times older sisters are kind of like meant to be the reserved, responsible ones. And I was like, but what if Elodie isn't? Like, what if she is just sick of taking care of everything and is the impulsive one and is the one that's like, ready to like burn the world down? And then again with Alia, I think that she is a little bit more like chill, more responsible. But I think that she has her moments where she flips and she's like, you know what? I'm done with all
Yeah.
of you. Like, I'm done
Yeah.
with this. I'm done with all of you. I'm done with this. So I think that they flip traits a lot.
Well, what's
Um,
interesting for me is that now that I'm in book two, I'm getting Elodie's backstory. And
yeah,
I think her backstory had an impact on her personality traits and her
yes,
recklessness or impulsivity. And again, I think everyone is so dynamic of a person. You can't just fit them. I mean,
I agree.
I'm the youngest and I'm definitely the wildest of my sisters.
Yes,
So I'm definitely that. But that's not all that I am. And so
right.
I think that that's a very good thing to bring up, and I think it will resonate with a lot of people, and not just women, but everybody.
Yeah.
So did you have a favorite character or scene that you wrote?
So, oh man, that's tough to think back to. I loved, let me think. In the first book, I loved the scene where Alia and Callum are racing
Oh,
on
yeah.
the beach.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
then he's like, you need to slow down. And she's like, what are you talking about? And he like turns around and catches her. I love that
Yeah.
scene.
Yeah.
Um, one of the scenes that was inspired by my real life that I thought was funny. Again, there's a lot of scenes in these books where like they were somehow like scenes from my real life that I just added in basically. But one of the scenes that was really funny to write because it was inspired by a real life event was the push-up thing in the first book with Alia and Callum, where Callum's like, fine, do 100 push-ups. And she's like, no, like I can't do 100 push-ups. Can you do 100 push-ups? And he's like, yes. And she's like, oh God, you're the worst. Like,
Of course
this
you
is so
can.
annoying.
Yeah.
But like, so that actually came from so I was again gonna write this scene where I was like, yeah, like he's gonna make her work her body physically before he
Yeah.
trains her, which I
Yeah.
think is like fair. Like, babe, you're weak. Like,
Yeah.
you can't do any of this. You
You
literally
can't hold
cannot
a
even hold
sword.
a sword.
Yeah.
Like, you can't lift it. Like, go ahead, do 30 push-ups and maybe I'll let you hold a sword. Like that sort of
Mhm.
thing.
Yeah.
Because again, I think what also annoys me in other books is like where the female main character, she like can all of a sudden, like she's like an assassin and she's literally never even gone on a run before. And I'm
Mhm.
like, there's literally no way. Like if you dropped me into a fantasy world, I would not be able to lift a sword. I would have no endurance at all because I think I'm a runner, but I only run, I don't know, like 6 times a year. Like I would be so pathetic. It would take me so long to gain the strength I would need to do any of the stuff that they do. And so I wanted to like bring that into the story because I'm like, no, they can't, she's not going to wake up and have magic and then all of a sudden know what to do with it. Like, so, anyways, so I was writing the scene about how she had to do push ups, and I was like, actually, how many push ups can I do? So I like got down and I was like, okay, I'm going to do some push ups. And I was thinking, like, I could probably do like 40 or 50 push ups. Why did I think that? I got to like 7 and I was like, oh my God, like, no. I was like, maybe it's just me. So I
Yeah.
texted my sibling group chat. It's like me, my husband, my sister, her husband, my sister in law, my brother. So,
Mhm.
and I was like, okay, boys, realistically, how many push ups do you think we could do? As in, like, me, my sister, and my sister in law.
Yeah.
And they're like, 5, like 2,
Yeah.
maybe 10.
Like actual
And
push-ups,
my
no knees down.
actual push-ups, no
Yeah.
knees, actual push-ups, which I was like kind of offended, but I had also just only done like 7 push-ups. I was like,
Yeah.
okay, we're gonna, I was like, no, 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 no. My sister-in-law is actually, she actually works out all the time. She's like super strong
Mhm.
and like she used to be a gymnast, and she was like, I am deeply offended. And then I was like, and I was like, well, how many push-ups do you guys think you can do? And they were like, 50, 67. I was like, there's literally no way. So we're all like sending videos. It's like in the middle of the workday. We're all like sending videos of each other doing push-ups. My sister-in-law ended up being able to do more than any of us.
Good for her.
They couldn't do like more than 40. And I was like, okay, like, so this was like a whole day of conversations about this. So I finally got back to the actual writing of it. And I was like, that was such a like diatribe. Like, that was just such a
Yeah.
tangent.
Yeah.
So that was a really fun scene to write just because it like caused so much chaos for a whole like
Yeah.
24 hours in my family.
Hmm.
Um, and then in the second book, and again, I'm not going to like give anything away, but the scene that you texted me about or messaged me
This the
about,
last one?
the really violent one.
Yeah, the one that wait. Because is it the one that I posted to my story or the one that I sent you a voice message
No, the
of?
one you sent me a voice message about.
Okay, yeah, that was
Yeah.
good.
And I had that scene in my head. Like I've had that scene in my head since the first book.
Yeah.
And the reason that I love it is because it's so again with Aiden, um, uh, and I think with all of my male main characters,
Mhm.
I really want them to be like, I don't like the whole like super macho, like, I'm gonna do this for you. I'm gonna do this
Mhm.
for you. I'm gonna do this for you. And I like the protective male main characters. Like I love that. but I also I like them kind of giving Alien Elliday the chance to stand up for themselves
Mhm.
first.
Mhm.
And so what I loved about that scene was like afterwards when they're talking about it, and he's like, "You told him to stop touching you, and he
Yeah.
didn't.
Yeah. You said no. You
You
said
said
stop.
no,
Yeah.
and he didn't." Because I'm like, yeah, that's when you can step in and like fix it. You know what I mean? And so
Yeah.
I've had that scene in my head for so long because I was like, yeah, he's not gonna let Logan get away with that. Like,
Yeah.
no.
No. So that actually I've been taking notes. So, but something that
Yeah.
I wanted to talk about is that, I mean, you're talking about Alia being kind of weak, and if me or you were dropped into a fantasy world, that's exactly where we would be at.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering how these characters are going to develop, because in book one, there is a lot of damsel in distress situations happening.
Yes.
And again, I would probably be in distress a lot of the time.
Yeah.
And no judgment, but I'm wondering, at like when we get to book three, how are you planning on having them become these very like
For
powerful,
sure.
strong-willed, doesn't need that kind of rescuing anymore?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I like 100%. And I think that, again, like the arcs of these characters is that they are going to struggle and struggle and
Yeah.
struggle and struggle and struggle.
Mhm.
And really, a lot of the character arc, especially for Alia, is but she perseveres. Like, she doesn't give up.
Yeah.
And again, with Elliday, it's more of almost an internal conflict of
Mhm.
overcoming herself. Like, she's her
Mhm.
own worst enemy.
Yeah.
Whereas I feel like Alia's conflict is more external of like, I'm having to deal with all of this stuff happening around me and to me. And so I think for Alia, again, the character arc, how I see it for the series, is that by the end of the third book, she is going to be her own self. Like,
Mhm.
she's going to be able to take care of these external conflicts
Yeah.
by herself.
Mhm.
And she's also going to have more autonomy over it. Like, things
Yeah.
aren't just going to be happening to her. And then
Okay.
I think with Elliday, the way I see her arc is by the end of the third book, she's going to be in control of herself. Like, she is
Mhm.
going to like be able to, and it's not even a maturity, it's a like, again, things have been so chaotic for her and so out
Mhm.
of her control. um and that's very, I think, evidenced in her personality and the way that
Yeah.
she reacts to things and the
Mhm.
things that she does. And I think by the end of the third book, she is going to have more confidence to make better decisions and to be like, I'm going to quit reacting to things and think through this first. And I think that that's going to kind of be her character arc. Whereas again, Ailey, I think, is more like the external things happening around her. She's going to have more like control over.
Well, in book two, so I'm currently reading book two. I'm at uh, Griffin drop off is where I am at right now. Just, just that's where I'm at.
Love it.
But Alia, again, in book one, she's very much the damsel in distress, but the situation that she finds herself in book two, and what she goes through without giving in. I'm trying not to
Yeah, I know.
spoil anything, but it's like, wow, like she really does have a lot of strength and
Yeah.
resilience and perseverance. And it honestly reminded me of Aelin a bit, because she kept saying a mantra that, gosh darn it, I forget it, but do you know what I'm talking about? It was like at the
Yeah.
end of, I think it was mentioned twice at the end of a couple chapters, that she was like, I will not give in, or something like that,
Yeah.
something along those lines.
Yeah, it's what Callum keeps saying. It's the, you are
Yeah.
brave, you are strong, you are unbreakable, you are not alone.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
know.
Anyways,
It's
but
about to get
even
way
in
worse,
book,
by the way.
yeah, oh, it's so good. But it's interesting because we're already seeing that in Alia. Like she's
Mhm.
already dealing and overcoming so much. And yeah, I really love to see her growth already. And I am loving book two. But one thing that's really interesting about these characters is the dynamic between the original three characters.
Mhm.
So there's Reed, there's Callum, and then there's Alia. And the way that it kind of morphs and shifts between all three of them,
Yeah.
right? all three of them have, and I love where Reed and Callum are in book two.
Yeah,
And it's, I don't know. I'm really excited to see where these friendships go because I
yeah,
feel like already Callum and Reed are a team. Like
yeah,
they are a united front. They're witch versus fae, but
yeah,
like they've these, two races that have been kind of pushed apart have like now come
yeah,
together again. And also just seeing how Elliday and I have questions for you. I don't want to ask it on here because I don't want to spoil anything, but the differences that's happening between Elliday and Alia is really interesting as well. And I'm wondering if those two differences are going to remain or if there's going to be some like things that are the same with them, if you get what
yeah,
I'm talking about. So I'm really interested to see how that progresses. But book two is, I feel like it's a page turner. You know what I mean?
yeah,
It's just, you want to keep reading, you want to find out what happens next. And where I'm at right now, so I feel like something big is about to be told to Alia, and I'm really excited for that to be told to
yeah,
her because I'm wondering. I mean, oh wait, oh, there was a surreal moment. Oh
yeah.
gosh, yes, I
There
just had
was.
that happen. I was like, so,
I know. He
you're
just ruins everything.
surreal. Okay, so anyways, oh, I did have a question. So again, this is just my question. What are the name meanings? What's Alia and Elliday? Are they Gaelic?
Yeah, they are. They're
Okay.
pulled from, they're kind of like, I guess, inspired by Scottish Gaelic. I actually had so Alia, and I can't remember because it's been so long since I actually conceptualized their names.
Yeah.
But Alia does relate to light, and
Yeah.
Elliday, the name does relate to like starlight, moonlight, that
Yeah.
sort of thing.
And
So they do come from those kind of again that Scottish Gaelic inspiration. I actually one of the really cool things about this book was I actually had conversations with a Scottish Gaelic translator.
oh,
And that was like really, really interesting to hear his take on some of the names that I had come up with. And because what I really didn't want to do was appropriate the language because it's a real
okay.
language and it's like, currently like it's still spoken and
Yeah.
written and used. So I didn't want to like appropriate it in any way. Um, and so it was really cool having those conversations with him of like, because in another life, I would have majored in linguistics. That was actually my original plan for grad school, is that I was going to go to grad school for linguistics. So this was all very interesting for me thinking about, so if, for Scottish Gaelic, if Elflane had been a fairy realm and had once been very connected to Scotland before, the realms were sealed,
Hmm.
how would the languages have intermixed? And
Hmm.
like, would it have been Scottish Gaelic that they
Yeah.
spoke?
Yeah.
And then if they were cut off in, whatever, 1,000 years
Hmm.
ago,
Hmm.
how would that language have developed versus current more like more, I guess, like English speaking, again, like if Scottish Gaelic just existed on its own rather than being influenced by like
Yeah.
English.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it was really interesting having those conversations with him, and he was like, yeah, I don't think you have time to like build out a whole language, but like
Mhm.
I get where you're trying to go with this, and I was like, yeah, I don't really have time to build out a whole language like this.
Yeah.
But he was like, yeah, I mean, like, he was like, I think that you can, use some of these like the inspiration again, thinking of, so for example, thinking about like about naming places,
Yeah.
um like a name like a loch, like um Lochmoor in the
Mhm.
book,
Mhm.
it's like Moon Lake, right? Because
Oh,
that's again in
okay.
Scotland, it's like Loch Ness. But
Mhm.
again, you have to think about the naming of places in terms of like, well, this is used for a body of water, but this is used for a mountain. So
Yeah.
like it was
Okay.
interesting, like again, thinking about the map and thinking about like, well,
Mhm.
if this place is called Lochmoor, then it has to be by a lake. It can't
Mhm.
be, in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
So So yeah, that was interesting. I don't know that I answered your question. I don't even
No,
remember. You
you did.
asked me
You did
about
at the
Alien
very
Holiday.
beginning. You're
Yeah.
good. Yeah, 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 yeah. I
Um,
was just wondering if it did have to do with their dualities,
yeah,
right? You know, if
it
there was
does.
one that was like light, one that was dark.
Yes. And then, but a
Um,
lot of the other names were just Scottish names. So,
okay. I actually, in speaking of that, I did have some reader questions, and one of them I
oh,
think
cool.
we can talk about now. But so book one is Ballad of Dawn. Book two
Yes.
is Song of Starlight. Somebody
Yeah.
wanted to know if you have a name for book three.
I don't have a name for book three yet.
Okay.
But it is going to follow that same pattern.
Yeah.
But I still haven't decided exactly how yet.
Yeah.
So
I
that's
know.
up for question,
Yeah.
actually.
I like it. So I also, a couple things I wanted to touch on is one, I like that the map at the beginning of Song of Starlight, Elflane is literally a mirror image
Yes.
of Scotland, which I thought was
Mhm.
really cool. It's just like flipped. And then oh, so the like it's like constant twilight. Is it in constant twilight? And so is that's because of the darkness, right?
So it is because of the darkness, but it's also because of the way that so again, to both of those points, the map and the constant twilight.
Yeah.
Um, Again, in Scottish fairy folklore, the fairy realm is like literally under Scotland. So it's like you enter the fairy realm through like hills and stuff.
Okay.
So that was kind of where I got the inspiration. I'm like, yeah, if it's under, but it's not underground though, if that
Right.
makes sense. Like it's just that's how you get there.
Yeah.
So like again, the inspiration for the map was like, yeah, it would be flipped, like it's just a mirror, right?
Parallel
Because
universe,
they're
right?
like,
Like, yeah.
yeah, they're like
Yeah.
folded on top of each
Yeah.
other. Um, and then in terms of the Twilight, so in the fairy ballads, which again, there's an argument to be made that this was a post-Christian influence. This is why it would be interesting to speak to people who, which again, this is like, I eventually am going to pursue a PhD, and it's probably going to be in Scottish folklore, which would give me a lot more opportunity to actually do some kind of original research
Yeah.
into this. But um, the fairy realm was always talked about as a place of constant twilight. So that's why it's I basically just give an explanation as to how it became that way
Okay.
in my books. But that's how it's always talked about in the folklore. And again, what would be interesting to know is if that's more of a post-Christian like revision of how the fairy realm was spoken about in Scotland, because it was not holy.
Yeah.
So that would be an interesting thing. That's something I would like to study is like, why was it bathed in darkness? Is it because it's meant to be evil? You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And so like that's something that I think I don't know the origins of that, but that's why it's bathed in twilight is because that's how it's spoken about in the fairy lore. And again, I just kind of create an explanation for that in my books in terms of the darkness and how
Yeah.
it's spread.
I actually have a theory based off of that.
Oh,
Um,
okay. Let's hear it.
so well, I don't know if okay, but the differences between the women, right?
Hmm.
So Aelia loves the sun, Elide loves the night. And so I'm wondering if by the end of this book, if Elide will remain in Elflane where it's in a constant twilight, and if Aelia will be where the witches reside
Yeah.
and be where the sun
Yeah.
is dominant, I guess.
Yeah.
And so that's like, I'm wondering if that's going to happen towards the end. Don't say anything, but like that's a theory that I have is because when they go to Elfland, I'm like, this is Elida's element. Like
Yes.
she's constantly in her under her night sky. Like
Yeah.
there's hardly any sun, and this is where she thrives.
Right.
And in the first book in Ballad of Dawn, Elia's all constantly like doing
Yes.
this in the sun. And so when she's in Elfland, she's not in her element. And I'm like, maybe this just isn't the place for her. Plus, she leans more towards that like witchy side, and
Yes.
Elide leans more towards the fae, and both
Yeah.
realms are right. So, anyways, just a theory. I'm just dropping that in there.
Love that.
So, for my final question about the book, what do you hope readers will take away from it?
So for the first book, um, I think the first book, really one of the things that I wanted to highlight was and this is, it was funny to me because people kept asking me, like, is this a why choose? And I was like, no, it's not a why choose. Like, hard no, it is not
Yeah.
that way. And people also kept saying, like, man, I really hate Reed. Like, he's just the worst. And I was like, yeah, like,
Mm,
he was meant to be, like
yeah.
he, again, his character arc is not like, he's supposed to be a foil, right?
Mm,
Um, and so what I wanted, I think, and it's funny because this is the quote that's probably highlighted the most in the first book,
hmm.
when Callum is saying, like, you, like, that's not what love is. Like,
Oh, yeah.
love is not being possessed by someone.
Hmm.
Love is
Hmm.
empowerment. It's
Hmm.
like, you, like, love is not selfish, right? Like, it
Yeah.
doesn't cloister away.
Yeah.
Um, and I think that that was really one of the main things that I wanted to, like, bring out in the
Hmm.
first book, was this whole kind of conflict. And again, with Reed, I think that I really like Reed as a character
I
because
do
I
too.
think that he is very complex. And what I
Mhm.
like about him is that he grows.
Yeah.
Is that he, again, thinks like, I think he does love Aelia. Like, I think he
Oh, yeah.
absolutely loves Aelia.
Yeah.
I do think that he wants what's best, but I do think that love can become twisted
Hmm.
when it becomes possessive. And I
Yeah.
think that that's what you see with Reed, is that it becomes twisted because he becomes so possessive because he's trying to protect her. And
Yeah.
also, to be fair to him, like, he knows the dangers more than she does. And he's
Yeah.
like, this is your, like, I'm so scared of this happening to you. But again, you can't let love become that way.
Yeah.
Um, and I think that, again, what I like about Reed is that, he has a moment at the end of the first book where he's like, okay, I get it.
Yeah.
Like, I'm
Mhm.
sorry,
Yeah.
and I think that he still has to fight that in the second book, that desire to just, like,
Mhm.
cloister away. But again, I think what I love about Callum is that Callum comes in and is like, that's not, like, no, that's
Mhm.
not what this is.
Yeah.
And that's not what it needs to be, and it's not what it has to be, um, or what it should be.
Yeah.
So I think that that's what I would like for readers to come away with in the first book, apart from all the, like, fairy lore, because I think that
Yeah.
that stuff's really cool too. It's a little bit of a learning
Yeah.
experience.
Yeah.
But then I think in the second book, um, so Elliday, there's a lot about Elliday that is probably inspired by me.
Hmm.
One of the things that's inspired from me is her, like, anxiety and panic attacks. Because it was funny because my sister-in-law, when she read an early draft of it, and she was like, I'm so glad that you have a panic attack in this book. Like, it's so well written, it's so accurate, it's such good representation. And I was like, yeah, I think that that's important too. And again, not that that's a weakness for Elliday, but it's something that she has literally dealt with her whole life, and she finally finds someone who gets it. Like,
Hmm.
she's like, he, like, Aiden is able to walk her through it without making her feel weak or embarrassed. Um, and so again, I think that, like, a lot of Elodie, and that's what I was saying earlier, a lot of her character growth is internal.
Yeah.
And that's, again, something that I've learned since writing a book, because apparently these things are done on purpose and
Yeah.
as writers, which I was
Yeah.
like, I didn't know that, but I did it anyway, so that's great. But you either have with characters an external conflict or an internal conflict. And like I said,
Yeah.
I think with Ailey, a lot of her conflict is external. And
Hmm.
then with Elodie, her conflict is internal. Like, she
Yeah.
is literally trying to overcome herself most of the
Yeah.
book. Um, and, like, she is her biggest obstacle. And I think with her panic, with her anxiety, like, that's something that I want readers to come away with as well, is like, that does not prevent her from doing anything. And she, like, deals with it and goes, like, and there's also fixed. Like, Um, I don't know. I don't think that you've gotten to this part, but there's a part in the second half. Maybe it's not even the full second half. You may have gotten to this part yet.
Okay.
But there's a part late in the towards the middle of the book where she's like, wow, I guess like, my panic doesn't just go away magically.
Yeah.
Like it's not fixed by her. So like
Mhm.
she has to still deal with it and still has to overcome it. And I think that that's again like just strength in character of like this is not going to define me and this is not who I am and this is not going to like prevent me from doing anything. Um and again, I think with like, I think the other thing that I would want people to come away with from the second book, and a lot of these lessons are in how the female main character and the male main characters interact, I think. Which is why like it's funny because people are like, it's cozy fantasy. And I'm like, yeah, but the romance part of it is, although it's closed door, it's steamy romance, but I'm like, but it's more than that because it is about their relationships with each other, kind of helping them learn things about each other, I think.
Mhm.
And again, with Aiden and the way that he interacts with Elliday, it's about like, look, I will have your back, but I'm going to give you the opportunity to either make these mistakes or defend yourself or, do this yourself first.
Mhm.
And so I think that that's also something I would want readers to come away with is like, in a healthy friendship, relationship, whatever
Mhm.
it is, um, you are in control and you have the autonomy and you have the power
Yeah.
yourself. So
I think that's really important because I have been dealing with panic attacks since I was about 20. So, not to age myself, but 16 years. And it's a really long
yeah,
time. And it's incredibly debilitating and
yeah,
really, really hard to go through. And so I already, when I first started the second book, I was like, oh, I love Elliday. Like
yeah,
that's my girl. I don't know if you know this, but my whole thing is Starlight. I'm the
yeah,
Starlit Shelf. Okay. So
right.
Sarah Starlit story. So I'm very dark and like I
Yeah,
love nighttime and moons and whatever. Um, but when she had that panic attack, I was like, oh, okay. Like
yeah,
now I even really resonate with her on a different level.
yeah,
And I think that a lot of us don't really talk about that very often,
right.
but so many of us are going through something very similar.
Yeah,
And to see that that's not going to stop her from doing what needs to be done and, protecting her sister and all of these other
yeah,
things that come into play. And it's like that doesn't define you. Like you're
right.
not just your anxiety. Like, yes, it's hard and that it does like when you're going through it, like that's all that there is, right?
Yes,
So,
right.
but you can get to the other side. And again, it's not all of what you are and it doesn't define
Yeah,
you.
agreed. And I think
Yeah.
that that's again where like that's also like I said why I love Elodie because it and it's also why I really wanted to include those kind of flashbacks with her
Hmm.
of
Yeah.
like her childhood
Hmm.
and of because again it's like this haunts her and again it kind of gives a little bit like more of a layer to her guilt
Hmm.
of with Alia because you're like that should have never been put on her as I can't remember how old I have them in the book but she's like 5 or 6
Yeah.
when this
I was like,
happens.
Alia, I think was 3.
Yeah,
And so she
3. So
wasn't much
she's like
older.
5. Yeah,
Yeah.
she's like tiny. And again, like I have a 5-year-old right now.
Me too.
And I'm like, I can't imagine like
Poor
sending him
baby.
off with like a
Yeah.
toddler and being like,
Yeah.
don't lose each other. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
but again, as parents, you're like, well, I'm also not gonna let you die. So like
Yeah.
you have to go.
Yeah.
So like there's a whole layer, I think, for her of like this was unfair in the first place, but also it adds this layer of like, of course you're having panic attacks about this, like she's your baby sister, and I
Hmm.
think that that's where like with sisters like that was like why the reel of Brooke like literally knocking me to the ground cracks me up because I'm like yeah your sisters so you're still gonna act like sisters like how Alia is like so pissed off at Elodie for the whole first book which is like
Yeah.
fair enough
Yeah.
um but Alia doesn't have the same trauma that Elodie does and she doesn't have the same guilt of an older sister of like,
Yeah.
because Alias the whole time is like, I'm sure Elodie got herself into trouble. Like, God, she's so stupid. Like, oh my gosh. And of course, she's worried. And she's
Hmm.
like, what happened to her? Like, I'm so scared, blah, blah, blah. But Elena has this different guilt and like fear for Alia that Alia would never know because Elide has a different trauma with it. And again,
Mhm.
it's just this kind of layered, like, she never should have, that burden never should have been hers in the first place, but she took it on and kind of her whole life revolved around it, which again kind of makes sense with her outbursts of like irresponsibility and like just like the impulsiveness because she's was just made to be responsible too early. Like,
Yeah.
so I think that it's an interesting, like, of course she has panic attacks, but she's
Yeah.
also been, portrayed as like this belligerent, confident, like person.
I feel like that's a really common thing to happen. I know it's not again for everyone, but a lot of time there's a lot of responsibility put on the eldest siblings
Yeah.
because the parents expect them to help them with the younger
Yes.
siblings. And
Yes.
so again, I mean hers is like very extreme, but
Right.
to some extent a lot of elder siblings are going to be like, yeah, I absolutely feel
Yes.
that kind of pressure growing up as well, and a responsibility for the safety
Yeah.
and health of my siblings. So
Exactly.
yeah. So let's switch over to more about you.
Okay.
So I mean we kind of already talked about inspiration for the story, but what inspired you to become a writer?
Yeah, so like I said, it just kind of happened to me. And I know that sounds really stupid, but like I literally did not plan on writing a book and I
Yeah.
just still it's so funny because people will be talking to me about my writing and I also teach college composition. So that's
Okay.
like my real job.
Yeah, yeah.
But people would be like, "Yeah, so you're an author." And I'm like, no. And they're like, well, you like wrote and published books. And I'm like, well, yeah, but I'm not an author. And they're like, no, but
But
you
you
are
are.
an author. And I'm like, I mean, I guess technically, but like not really. You know what I mean? Like it's very, very imposter syndrome where I'm
Yeah,
like, no,
for
I'm
sure.
not. Like that's not
Yeah.
a real thing.
Yeah.
So it's definitely not something that
Oh,
I have not like comprehended that about myself for
yeah.
sure.
Mhm.
But I think what inspired me, so like, um, after I had my youngest, I think that everyone, when after you have a baby, like there's like this not even postpartum depression, but it's which like some people have, and I think I probably maybe did for for a while in hindsight, which I just didn't. Like you just don't know because you're like so in
You're
the
in
trenches.
it. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
But I think that there's a lot of like losing yourself in that. And I
Mhm.
think that so like after he was about, I guess probably one, my sister had been begging me to read Akatar for like years. And
Mhm.
I read so much when I was younger. I also have a like very weird, like traumatic history with like church. So like that I won't get into, but like, like I like went to seminary for a year. Again, I like fully commit to stuff when I'm
Yeah.
like in it.
Yeah.
Like I have no chill at all in my
Yeah.
personality. I'm
Mhm.
very black and white. And so but so for a long time all I read were textbooks, theology books. Like I didn't read anything for fun for like years and years and years, and that was my whole personality when I was younger,
Mhm.
was reading books for fun, was like
Mhm.
fiction
Mhm.
um, and fantasy. And then, so I think after I had my youngest, I was like, okay, fine, I'll read these Akatar books, whatever.
Mhm.
That year, I read like 150 books, and
Oh
that
my,
was starting in like July.
mm,
Like,
my God.
not really a year, it was half a year. And so because again, I have no chill. Like I have no
Yeah.
gray area. When
Yeah.
I commit to something, I'm in 110%. I'm a
Yeah.
fire sign. I can't help it. Like it's
Yeah.
just who I am.
Yeah.
And so I was like, I literally read like 150 books from July to December. And it was like, I mean, it was like all consuming. And slowed down a little bit like the next year, but still read like 100 books the year after that.
Mhm.
And was just fully back into fantasy world. And again, because I'm like a researcher by trade, I started researching all sorts of mythologies, all sorts of
Mhm.
folklore, um, witchcraft, all of it. And so I wasn't really necessarily inspired to become a writer, but I think after all of that research and then going to Scotland, and it's truly a magical place. Like it is, there is magic there for sure, like
Mhm.
100%. We were there, the second day we were there was summer solstice, and we were staying in this
Oh.
like house by a river, and like, I mean, it was like truly magical. And I was like, and again, that's why the book starts on summer solstice.
Mhm. Mhm.
And so it was just, I was like, hi, like we got back from that trip, and it was just like in my head, the story, it just like kept talking to me and these characters. And again, I'd read so many books that I was like, I kind of brushed it off like,
Mhm.
whatever. I'm just like, I'm reading too many books, basically.
Yeah.
Like this is in my head now.
Yeah.
But then I just kept thinking about it, kept thinking about it, kept thinking about it. And I was transcribing these fairy ballads.
Yeah.
And I told my husband, I was like, I think I'm gonna write a book. And he was like, yeah. And I
Okay.
was like, what do you mean,
Sense.
yeah? And he
Yeah.
was like, yeah, I always thought you'd write a book. Like you
Yeah.
love to read, you love to, like you
Yeah.
love these worlds, like
Mhm.
you're really creative. Like, why wouldn't you write a book? And I was like, I really thought you were going to tell me that was really dumb. Like I did not think that that was going to be your reaction. Like, like, do you know how hard it is to write a book? Like, I
Yeah.
can't just like go write a book.
Oh.
But then, I mean, it was literally, I started writing the book like the end of July, beginning of August of 2023. And I
Mhm.
finished writing the book mid-October. Like
Wow.
it was like a fever dream. And that's
Yeah.
why, like I said, that's why I tell people, I'm like, no, I was a vessel for the story. Like I don't even, that's all I did. Like that's all I did was write down the story. Um, and it's funny because the first 10 chapters probably took me longer to write than the rest of the book, because I told my sister, I was like, so I started writing a book. She was like, what? I was like, yeah, like I started writing a book. Do you want to read it? She was like, okay. So I sent her the first 10 chapters. She's like, it's garbage. I was like, well, that's fair. Um, like she's like, this doesn't make any sense. Da, da, da. So I rewrote it. And then I
Yeah.
rewrote it. I rewrote the
Oh,
first 10 chapters probably 20 times, like from
wow.
scratch. And so but then after I finally got it right or
Yeah.
close enough, the rest of the book, it just like flowed. And I was like, this is crazy. Like, I can't believe I'm writing a book. And I went through the whole, because again, no chill. I started researching everything that I could about publishing. Um, and I really more so, like, I started querying because I was like, well, why not? Like, I have a book,
Yeah. Yeah.
And querying was the worst.
I bet.
And I was kind of at the point where I was like, and I had another writer friend, Anika, who she was in my grad program with me. And we were swapping stories, we were querying at the same time, and we were both looking into self-publishing. And we both were finally like, and I had started my Bookstagram, which was like, I was like, I have no idea what I'm doing here. Like, not a single clue. And so then I finally was like, you know what, if I'm going to spend all this energy, because querying is extremely exhausting, it is a huge energy time suck because you're having to do a lot of research into agents, and it is emotionally exhausting,
Oh, I bet.
because you're just getting rejection after rejection, which again is very normal. Like the average number of queries, I think I used to know this data point, before you even get a yes, I'd like to read the rest of your book, not a yes, I'll represent you, just yes,
Yeah.
I'll read, send me
Yeah.
the first 10 chapters of your book. Um, it's like a hundred
Whoa.
queries. And I was like, I just honestly, again, like this was not ever something I thought I would do. It's not my full-time job. I have 4 kids. Like I was like, I'm not gonna spend 3 years and 100 rejections querying to
Hmm.
then potentially maybe get an agent, to then like going on submission. So this book wouldn't even eat, like best case scenario, this book wouldn't hit shelves for 5 years. And I was like,
Whoa.
I'm not doing that. Like, I'm
Yeah.
not doing that. This is not my full-time job. This isn't something I ever thought I would do. Like, I just want the book out there. Like
Yeah.
I'm very like instant gratification coded. So I was like, you know what? I'm just going to self-publish it and I'm going to get it out there. And again, it was like shocking to me because I got like 150 pre-orders for my first book. And I was like,
Oh,
who are these people? How did they find me? Like why do
yeah.
all these people want to read this book? Like this is crazy. So it kind of just exploded, and it was like very much so out of my control. Like at that
Mhm.
point, like I was like, I just don't, again, it was like at my book launch, I was like, how did this happen? Like, I don't know
Mhm.
how I got here. I don't know how this happened. Um, and again, people were just like, this is also funny. So I had, a pretty big ARC team. I had like over
Mhm.
200 people on my ARC team for my first book. And they kept on giving me 4 and 5 star reviews. And I was like, I think they're just being nice.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, they're just being
Yeah.
nice. I don't think they actually like the book. Like, they're just probably doing this, like to be
Mhm.
nice. Um, because they're an art team, that's what they're supposed to do. But then again, like they just kept posting about it. Like, I love this book. I love this book. And I was like, maybe they're not lying. Maybe they do really like this book, Like, I was,
Yeah.
but it was just like
Wow.
so shocking to me. I was
Yeah.
like, I don't believe, like, there's no way, like, I don't
Mhm.
believe you. So it's all been I've been shocked by the whole experience at every single stage. Like,
Yeah.
every single stage. The fact that I even started writing a book, I was like, this is preposterous. Like, this is
Yeah.
absolutely insane.
You're on book two and you don't even, you're, well, are you writing book three right now?
I'm writing I'm writing book 3. I'm writing a standalone prequel.
Oh,
I'm writing a spin-off sequel series, which is
oh,
going to
shut up.
be it's dark academia. That's all I'm going to say about
Ooh.
it. But
Ooh.
it's really actually hard for me not to just write that series because I'm so excited about it.
Oh,
But the Fairy Queen prequel, actually, I'm really, really excited about. I did kind of accidentally query that book because I had already signed up for a conference like a year before I even published my first book.
mm,
And I was like, well, I'm not going to query my second book because that's like, there's no point. I'm just
yeah.
self-publishing all the way through. I was like, but you know what? I started this Fairy Queen standalone, like, prequel. Maybe I'll query that just to see like what happens. Because I had the first 10 pages written at least, and that's usually what agents will ask for in a query
Yeah.
conference. They'll be like, yeah, sure, just send me the first 10 pages. And then from there, it's like, you don't hear from them for 6 months. So I was like,
Yeah.
it's not a big deal. I'll just query this book. I got 4 full manuscript requests. And I was like, this book is not written. Like, I
Whoa.
was not expecting that. Um, which the way that querying works, like, those requests never expire. So, like, once I finish that book, I am going to send it to those agents. And I actually think it has a chance of being traditionally published because I'm writing it like a play.
Hmm.
So, like a Shakespearean play, it's going to have act one, act two, act three, act four, act
Yeah.
five.
Yeah.
And it follows the Fairy Queen's story. And it's almost written a little bit like Circe by Madeline
Okay.
Miller.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's like, again, a retelling of the Fairy Queen. Like, when you think about like the Fairy Queen from the Thomas Rhymer ballad or the Fairy
Mhm.
Queen from like Shakespeare,
Yeah. Queen
like,
Mob.
so
Mob.
yeah, Queen Mab.
Yeah.
And so I'm kind of like reclaiming her story, and it's not, I don't know that it falls into romantasy, honestly. Like, it's a little bit sad. So like,
Oh,
I don't really know how I'm gonna get it into the right genre yet, but I'm really excited about that book because it's just different than what I've been writing, I guess. But yeah, I have started the second book or the third book. I have started the spin-off series, and I'm like, I'm pretty deep into this prequel. So
and yet you still don't feel like an author, which
but I'm
so
not an author.
so, you already talked about dealing with imposter syndrome. And my next question is, what's been the biggest challenge as an indie author? I feel like you've covered quite a bit, like just the obviously the writing, right? You did redid the first 10 chapters over and over and over again,
Yes.
querying, and then the what did you say at the very beginning? Was it publishing? Just
Yeah.
getting published, and
Yes.
then now imposter syndrome. But is one of those specifically or a completely different aspect the biggest challenge for you as an author?
So the biggest challenge I think for indie authoring is for sure the marketing.
Okay.
Because it is again extremely time consuming, and it is, and I don't know how to say this without like sounding ungrateful, but like, I feel oftentimes like I am just shouting into the void.
Mm,
And it gets frustrating because I'm like, I literally, like, I personally have taken a lot of risks in my indie author journey, like pulling out of Kindle Unlimited, selling direct as kind of my main source of getting my books out there. because I just am so fed up with Amazon and like then destroying the book industry. Like they
Yeah.
are literally like putting independent bookstores out of business. Um, and so like I've taken a lot of risks, but on it's like the reader indie author relationship is so symbiotic because I'm like, I can't keep writing these books if I can't sell these books. And if I
Yeah.
can't like, and it's not even it really isn't about money. It's about exposure.
Yeah.
Like I whenever, and this is again, and I've shared this with my street team, um, I have like actual numbers, like real data of correlation of when someone else posts about my book or comments on, a recommendation post or whatever, shares in their stories. Um, there is a literal correlation between me either getting a follower, an ad on Goodreads, or sale. Like 9 times out of 10. When someone else posts about my book, I am seeing the results from it almost immediately. Um, Whereas when I post about my book, I don't get those sorts of results. And so like it is literally like we indie authors are so codependent on readers. It's unbelievable. And again, I just don't, and I post about it a lot, and I adore my readers. Like
Mhm.
absolutely adore my readers. Like I mean, I wouldn't like this wouldn't happen without the readers in this community who are incredible. Like I love romantasy readers. My latest reel, I may have to archive it because it's just getting way too contentious, but like I I made my latest reel because I'm so sick of romantasy readers getting like being told they're less than for reading in this genre. And I'm like, quit hating on women reading books that they like. Like, first of all, this stuff is like, this could not be more feminist. Like, I'm sorry, but like, this is, like, these books are for empowering women, like this
Mhm.
genre. So I love romantasy readers. I love my readers, but it is like, I literally, like I cannot do the same things that my readers can do for in
Yeah.
terms of like getting my book out there.
Yeah.
Um, so like we are so codependent on our readers, and I keep like I feel like I keep telling people I'm like it really is as simple as like just engaging with posts, like commenting, liking, reposting, sharing, creating just a story
Yeah.
about like, hey, I'm reading this book, or look at this book, or again like platforming indie authors instead of traditional authors who, again, I'm not against traditional published authors, but they already have that reach. Whereas indie authors don't have that reach. It has to be manufactured. So, like, that's kind of where I think that that's for sure the most like exhausting and frustrating part about being an indie author is like, I really cannot do. I have almost 10,000 followers, and my reels get 1,200 views, and I'm like, I just can't do it. Like I can't do it, and it's too exhausting, and content creating is too exhausting, and managing all this is too exhausting. I literally can't write books because I'm too busy trying to get exposure for my books. So like I think that that's probably the most frustrating part, is like feeling so out of control of that. And I think a lot of indie authors are probably similar to me in that we are type A, like want to be in control of things. That's why we self-published. Um, and yet we have no control over this specific part of it, you know?
So this really hits home for me because I have obviously switched over to
Yeah.
highlighting indie authors. And I'm not even an author, okay, but I'm
Yeah.
getting so frustrated because I can post a silly like lip sync reel and it does so much better than when I am promoting an indie author.
Yeah.
And I try like an individual indie author. Typically, when I'm saying something about indie authors in general, it's okay. But when I'm
Yes.
actually focusing on one specific author, engagement drops off. And I don't know
It
what is
does.
happening. And I'm like, how can I get people? Because you've seen some of my reels, but I'm trying to let readers know, hey, even just doing this little thing makes a big difference. So when you see me posting
Right.
about an individual author, if you like it, share it, comment it. And I'm not even talking like I don't care about me. My
Right.
new mission is to uplift you guys. And it's like
Right.
whenever I do,
It doesn't,
there's like
yeah, it doesn't
400
work. Yeah.
views. There's 400 views and like 5 likes. And I'm like, what is going on?
Yeah.
Why is this? But in saying that, so one, again, if you're a reader, help indie authors, just share
Yeah.
their content. Okay. And then also, but the more that we talk about it, the
Yes.
more that we push this kind of content out, the more the algorithm's going to pick it up. And so I feel like this is like a community effort,
Yeah.
and again,
I
go ahead.
I think I think what you said right there is really important because I think that it is about training the algorithm. And
Yeah.
this is where again like we are fighting against the algorithm that it knows when you post a reel about Akatar that people are going to like it so they
Mhm.
share it more. Whereas
Yeah.
when you post a reel about the Elflaine Chronicles, well, people don't know about this book so like the algorithm doesn't really know what to do with it. So like
Mhm.
it literally like it will take a lot of, I think, and not really a lot of effort, but it will take effort on people consuming this media to
Yeah.
change the way the algorithm treats these sorts of posts, you know? And again, I don't like it's not our fault and I don't think it's the reader's fault. It is I think the algorithm's fault. But we just have to do more to engage with reels and posts that are highlighting indie authors because that it trains the algorithm.
So did you see my reel where I was like kind of complaining about it? And I was like, this is like really frustrating. Why is it when it's an individual, nothing happens,
Yeah.
but when it's everyone? So a lot of people commented and they're authors. Okay. So
Yeah.
we're like, I've never seen that content from you. All
Yeah.
I've ever seen is just the general
Yep.
posts. And I'm like, what the heck? But I feel like because of that difference of engagement and views, I feel like I have to occasionally post
Yes.
something about
I do too.
something else in
Yeah.
order to get people to come to my page and see and then engage with my stuff and then see like, oh, she's like highlighting indie authors. So
Yeah.
I got them from,
Right.
Sarah J. Moss, or like right now it's Quicksilver. Quicksilver's trending,
Yeah.
or Brimstone, right? Like post something about Brimstone, get them over to my page. Then they start
Exactly.
indie author stuff. And then they are like, oh, maybe I
Yes.
should check this out too.
Hmm.
Right. And so it's really hard because I still feel like I have to do this kind of content
I
in
know.
order to get them to this kind of content. But I
Well,
don't want to do that anymore. I don't want to
I
do
agree.
memes.
Well, and it's funny because I do think that there again this is where I'm like, y'all, we are the demographic that could literally actually change the algorithm because I think we're just like tenacious enough to do it.
Mhm.
But it and by demographic I mean like romantasy readers. Like I think
Yeah.
that we are like I
What's
think that people
what's
I
their
think
parameters? Like just
again I do think that like people again overwhelmingly support indie authors, but it
mhm.
is again figuring out the way to do it with like content wise. One of the things that again I talk about a lot, or I used to at least, and I kind of gave up on it. So one of the easiest things for people to do if they're trying to support a specific indie author is to turn on like at on everyone's profile. If you
Mhm.
go to their profile, there's a little bell. And if you click that bell,
Oh,
then it means that you will be notified when they post anything.
yeah.
Like it will show up on your feed.
Yes.
Um, and so that's one of the easiest ways to make sure that you're not missing content from indie authors. But another thing that I think, again, it just needs to become a habit, and we all need to go through the learning, like the very hard learning curve of like not getting a lot of views, is comp titles. And I talked about this a lot like in the past 6 months, or maybe 6 months ago, I should say, but like comp titles of using what the algorithm likes of
Mhm.
like if you like Throne of Glass then you'll like the Elfling Chronicles, if
Oh,
you like
okay.
this then you'll like this. So starting out with something the algorithm knows it likes and then bringing
Interesting.
in something new, and that's again where like I said with and that's one of the things that I have tried to talk about as well with, and I did a reel about this with platforming indie authors. When there is a trend, right? and it's literally just you're just talking about books instead of instead of holding the books that, are traditionally published, you're holding indie books. You know what I mean? So it's
Yeah.
like literally just taking a trend and like following the trend, but just physically having the books there. Or again, if you're a Kindle reader, like having your Kindle there, like
Yeah.
it's literally just the visibility of it.
Yeah, I
Um,
really I switched my bookcase so that all my indie published books are
yeah,
here because I was
I
like,
love
these
that.
need to be like right there.
Right.
I'm starting to do more like reels with just my indie
Yes.
books in my hands and taking like my, profile photos with my indie books. But
Yeah.
I like that. So comp titles, is that comparison titles?
Yes.
Okay.
Comparison titles.
So I need to be writing this down
Right.
because yeah, that's a good point because it recognizes, Throne of Glass, Brimstone, or
Yes.
whatever, and it's like, okay, so we have fae, and witches. Like, what other books that the
Yes.
algorithm is familiar with that we can compare
Right.
it to, and then like,
Well, and again, like the content that people like of like, like for example, I saw a post that did this. This was a while ago, but they were doing the whole like, like when they would do like imagining text conversations between characters. Like it would be
mm.
like text, like a group
Oh
text
yeah, yeah,
message
yeah,
with
yeah, yeah,
like, Aelin and Kale and, like
mhm.
Rowan and, whatever.
Yeah,
And they would have a slide with, again, characters that we know, like
yeah,
characters that everyone knows, right? Um, and then it would have a slide of indie author characters. And then it would have a slide of characters everyone knows, and then a slide of indie author characters. So again, it's like showing people like, hey, we may not immediately recognize these indie author characters, so you can't connect with it as well, right? But if you're starting off with something that everyone can kind of connect with, then adding in something indie, that's where I think this shift will happen in Instagram. That's my opinion. I
I'm
have
gonna
no
test this
research to back that
theory.
up.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
gonna
but I
test
but
this
I
out
think that like
because
you have to do, yeah, you have to draw people into something they know and then add in something they don't know. And I think that that's, again, that would help with the algorithm, and it would
yeah,
also generally help with people where they're like, "Oh my gosh, that's so funny. Like I want to read that book so that I'm
yeah,
in on the joke." Right?
yeah,
So it like kind of plays into people's FOMO a little bit, but it
yeah,
also shows, or again with character art, like having character art of characters that everyone can easily recognize, and then character art of like, maybe a less recognized character from an indie book. So like I
yeah,
think that that's the shift that needs to happen. And again, I talked a lot about that, of like platforming indie authors kind of alongside traditionally published books, so that there is that connection of like, oh, you liked A Discovery of Witches, then you might like the Elflaine Chronicles, or
yeah,
like, whatever it is. And I think that that is what would really help with people kind of making those connections through social media, is something we know, something we're familiar with, something that we're unfamiliar with, and then kind of being like, I'll probably like that too.
I
So
just thought of what if Outlander met Throne of Glass? Boom, you got Elflane Chronicles.
yeah, exactly. Well, and again,
I'm
that's where
gonna do
like,
that. Watch, I'm gonna do this for your month, and we're gonna get so many. We're gonna do it. I'm gonna make it happen.
yes,
This is gonna be
and
hilarious.
that's where, like I said, that's where I think that you like it's I think it's normal for people to, again, react to something that they recognize,
Yeah,
right? And so it's like you have to kind of just like use that, and then in the caption is where you can be like, like, yeah, really highlighting the indie author. So like you can, in
yeah,
the content, kind of be more so highlighting this, like the thing that's recognizable, and then
yeah,
kind of adding in the indie stuff. And then in the caption, that's where you can be like, I really loved this character. I really loved Rowan in Throne of Glass. But you know who I really loved? Aiden in
I was
Song of
just
Storms.
gonna say it's Aiden,
You
isn't
know
it?
what I mean? So it's like, so I think that
Yeah,
that's where the conversation can happen, is in the caption, but it's the easily recognizable. I'm gonna for sure like and save that post because I know that I like that. It's like
yeah.
building off of stuff that people already enjoy, and then being like, well, then also look at this, and again, like bringing in that conversation in the caption. I think,
I love that. I'm
yeah,
mind blown. I'm gonna use it. You're gonna be the person I'm trying it on, and what
yes,
this is gonna work. We're gonna do it.
right. Let's
Already,
do
I
it.
compared Alia to Aelin in the like
Yeah,
situation she's in book two
Yeah.
and the resilience, right? And it's like,
Yes.
okay, well, like if this moment really moved you in this book,
Yes.
then you're going to be very empowered by this moment in
Yes.
Song of Starlight. Kind of.
Exactly. And I think that that's again where people relate to that and they're like, perfect. I would love to read that book because I think that that's where like, and this is where I think that again, and this is something that I think about a lot in terms of like my books and my imposter syndrome is I'm like, people read lots of books. So
Yeah.
like they're going to spend a couple days reading my book and then they're going to move on to another book. So like this, I think that books are so consumable that like there is enough like time and space for all of us. And I think that that's where a lot of indie authors get discouraged. They're like, they're never going to find my book or they're never going to read my book. And I'm like, yeah, but people read books literally all the time. Like, so it just is a matter of like convincing readers to take up that whatever 48 hours, that 72 hours of space to
Yeah.
read your book. So
Yeah.
like that's really the hard job that we have that is just very difficult with the way social media is changing all the time. Like
Yeah.
it's really hard to keep up with.
Yeah. I wish we didn't have to do that,
Me
but
too,
I think
but it's
that,
okay.
but it is a way to reach new readers. And
Yes,
I think that people, I mean, publishers are looking for what's trending. And so we're getting a lot of the same formula in a lot
I
of
agree.
these books that are being released. And so it's like, yeah, this has similarities to this book, but this is a very unique story. And I
Yeah,
think that you're going to feel like it's refreshing because it's
right.
not following that same formula.
Agreed.
So based off of this and this whole, honestly, this whole interview, what advice would you give aspiring authors?
Yeah. So, and this is something I actually talked to writers a lot
Mhm.
about this is if you I was actually having this conversation with a friend the other day who is working on writing a book. um I think a lot of people get stuck in their head about writing a book, and this is I find this a lot with my students as well who are novice writers.
Yeah.
um you just have to throw words at a page. They do
Yeah.
not have to be good.
Yeah.
Like I said, I think that one of the biggest misconceptions is that writing a book is as straightforward as writing a book, and it's not. You can write just a scene that's in your head.
Yeah. Yeah.
You can write something and then delete it. Like
Yeah.
that's actually one of the activities that I practice with my students a lot is we do what I call quick writing, where I'll give them like half a sentence as a prompt and they have a minute and a half, 45 seconds, 30 seconds, 3 minutes that they have to just write. And the only rule is that they can't
Wow.
stop writing. And
Wow.
then at the end of it, I'll have done like 4 or 5 prompts and it'll take whatever, 5 or 6 minutes, right? Because we're not spending a lot of time on it.
Mhm.
And the first thing I have them do is delete one of them because I'm like, you can delete stuff. Like, this does not
Yeah.
have to be permanent. And it's just like, I feel like it's this pressure that people feel to make it perfect the first time. And I'm like, literally, all you have to do is put words on a page. Like, they do not have to be good and you don't even have to keep them.
Mhm.
So, my advice to people who want to write a book and just can't seem to get started is literally to just write.
Okay.
Get it out of the idea stage and throw the words at the page because you can, like, that's what revision's for. I mean, the this is also why the second book nearly killed me. Because I was literally about to send art copies out. And I decided that in the second book, Alia and Callum and Reed's story was just not right. Like, I was like, it's just not reading right, and I'm not happy with it. I literally rewrote every single one of their chapters. This was after alpha readers, beta readers.
Oh my
I
God.
rewrote every single one of their chapters in the first half of the book. Every
Wow.
single one of their chapters, rewrote them because I was just not happy with it. And again, that's okay. Like, you can go
Yeah.
back and do that. And so I think that that's where people get frustrated. And then on the other side of it is at some point you have to stop. Like, you have to stop because the story can always be revised.
Yeah.
There is no such thing as a final draft. There just isn't. There is a draft that you are done with,
Yeah.
and that's
Yeah.
it. That's as close as you're going to get to a final draft. Because I am actually going to be re-editing my first book because again, I just learned a lot as a writer. I didn't really have a developmental editor the first time around.
Mhm.
And I think that there's a lot of things in this story. Again, the story is going to stay the same. But there's a lot of it that I want to polish, I guess is the best way to put it. And I'm also going to change the chapters to where they're short, like the second book where they switch every point of
Mhm.
view.
Yeah.
But I am going to re-edit the first book. But again, with the second book, I mean, I could have, I still could rewrite. I've been actually reading through it for the first time ever, which again, this is so funny because like when I started editing my second book, I think I had like 97,000 words. And normally with editing, you cut words, which I was like, this is weird because this book is shorter than the first book, but oh well, I'm going to go with it. I ended up with like 110,000 words in the final draft of the second
Mhm.
book because I ended up adding whole chapters,
Oh,
like
okay.
whole
Yeah.
chapters that
Hmm.
I literally did not even read all the way through. Like I published the book and had not actually read through the new chapters that I added because I sent them to my editor right away. She did the developmental editing, she did the line
Yeah.
editing, so I was like making changes, like I reread it but not really, and then
Yeah.
was like, okay, done, moving on, like I have a deadline.
Oh,
So there were full chapters that I did not read until I got a physical copy of it, where I was like,
whoa.
that's actually really good, like okay, that worked out, that was really scary.
Oh my God.
So I'm reading the book for the first time, and again, it's really hard, and I know other authors feel this way, where like there are sections where I just have to like kind of skip through it because it's a chapter that I rewrote so many times. And I'm like, I'm still not really happy with it. Like I
Yeah.
still could go back and rewrite it, but I still probably wouldn't be happy with it because it's just I had looked at it too much.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think that that's the other side of the advice that I would give is that you have to stop at some point because the
Right.
book is never really done.
Yeah.
But you have to decide not really this is good enough because I don't want to be like a nihilist about it, but like this is the story I want to tell.
Hmm.
Because it could always change. And especially like again, I, the more you write, the better you get at writing, just like anything
Hmm.
else. So like if I were to go back and that's why I'm gonna wait to re-edit my first book until after I'm done with my third book.
Hmm.
Um, but of course it would change,
Yeah.
but that's okay because when I was a different person when I wrote this first book. Like
Right.
I have also grown and changed, since
Hmm.
then. So it's just I think at some point you have to stop and let it go, and let it go out into the world. And otherwise that's why people write books and then never publish them because they're like, no, I just need to change
Constantly
this one
questioning
thing.
themselves. Yeah. So we've talked about your inspiration. So these are some reader questions. Somebody asked about your inspiration, but we covered that right at like the beginning of this interview.
Yeah.
But somebody did ask, who are your favorite authors or your favorite books?
Ooh, that's a great question. So I love Heather Fawcett.
I don't know who that is.
She wrote Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies.
Oh, I do know who that is. Okay, yeah,
Yes, which
yeah.
was a huge inspiration for my books.
Okay.
And I think one of the reasons, and I think she's not everyone's cup of tea,
Mhm.
but one of the reasons that I love her books is because they're just so like whimsical.
Yeah,
Like they're very kind of low stakes fantasy. They're not really romancy. There is a romance plot in Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies, but it's not really the point of the story, if that makes sense.
yeah.
But I think when I read that book, it made me feel the way that I felt when I read books when I was like younger.
That's exactly
Um,
what I was gonna say. That reminds me of that just brings me back to like 10-year-old Sarah who was obsessed with
yes,
fairies and that
exactly.
magic. Yeah.
Yes. So I think that for sure, like she is definitely one of my kind of newer favorite authors just because I really love her storytelling.
Hmm.
And I just loved Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies. It's such a great series.
Now I
Again,
feel like
it's
I want to read it.
very,
Okay.
yeah, it's very, very based in folklore. It's a nice break from the kind of
Yeah.
like romantasy books that
Yeah.
I think, a lot of us get sucked into.
Yeah.
Um, I have loved watching Melissa Rorick and Penn Cole's journeys,
Mhm.
from indie to trad. I think that that's like super interesting. And I really respect them and like
Mhm.
and very like inspired again by like who they are as authors. I've met Melissa Rorick at a book conference. She's just the nicest. Like I love her. Um, and her Lady of Darkness series is really good. I still haven't read Spark of the Everflame yet. That's like on my
Oh,
TBR.
yeah.
That's actually one of like that's one of the low key things as a writer. Like this would be like if I did like a things that like writers don't tell you sort of thing,
Mhm.
then it would be that you just don't read anymore.
Yeah.
Like you just literally don't read anymore as a writer because you just don't have time. So
Yeah.
like I have so
Yeah.
many books that are on my TBR that I just like
Oh,
I'm like, these are just going to be here forever because
yeah.
I made a reel at the beginning of this year that was a joke of like, because everyone was posting their like reading goals.
Mhm.
And I was like, reading goal of an indie author to read literally anything other than my own manuscript 100 times. Like, so I think that those are some authors that I really respect. And then I also, there's another indie author who I love. Um, and her name is Madeline Elliott, and she has a huge backlist. She started writing like 2023. I don't know how she produces the amounts of books that she produces, but they are like kind of comfort reads for me, which
Mhm.
I'm sure that she would be like, "What?"
Yeah.
Like I don't even know you.
Yeah.
But the she has like a couple of series, and she has like this little novella series that I love.
Mhm.
She's definitely an indie author to check out because her books they're just so like they're just exactly what you want from fantasy. Like
Mhm.
it's just exactly what you want. They're like romanticy. The characters are great. The plot's great. Like I really enjoy her books. So
Oh,
all of
that's
them.
so cool. I
Yeah.
like that it's an indie author too. So somebody also wanted to know, is there an audiobook release date for book two? Because they are currently reading book one for my book club.
Oh, yay, I love that. That's so cool. So the audiobook for the second book is not in the works.
Oh, okay.
The audiobook for the first book, so the way that I did it, because again, I cannot do anything by halves. It was a duet narration,
Oh,
which
okay.
means
Yeah.
that it's like the female voice and the male
Yeah.
voice. Um, and it is the most expensive format for an audiobook. I did it through a Kickstarter, but I still really have not recovered the money that I put into
Oh,
it.
yeah.
And so until I can like really actually like make lots of money from my
Yeah.
books, I'm
Yeah.
gonna have to hold off on the audiobook because I don't want to do it as like I don't I want to do it the same way with the same, voice actors.
Yeah.
So like I want to do it kind of not that there's like a wrong way to do it, but I want to do it the way that I started it, if that makes
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes sense.
So
Um,
yeah.
so we're actually getting close to the end.
Yeah.
So is there do you want to let readers know where they can connect with you?
Yes. So social media, Instagram is the best way for
Mhm.
sure. If you want to like, you know, be confident that you're getting updates from me again, if you click that little bell, you'll get notified when I post things, but also signing up for my email list.
Okay.
My email list, I literally only send big updates through. So it's not a monthly newsletter. It's literally just I think I've sent like 3 emails this year.
Okay.
So I really don't send emails a lot. It's literally only with big updates. And then also through in terms of like, so sorry.
No, it's okay.
Um, I've been getting like, hold on.
No, you're fine. You're fine.
Where did you go?
I feel like my
Okay.
family's here in just a second.
I have been getting so many spam calls lately and it's driving me nuts. So in terms of buying my books,
Oh yeah.
buying my books from my website is for sure the best way to support me, I guess.
Mhm.
I also, my ebooks, I sell for $1, which the pricing is going to go up in January for everything because everything's just more expensive. Um, but I'm also going to be doing bundles for everything when my pricing changes.
Okay.
But when you buy a physical book from me, you get the ebook automatically for free. So
Oh,
that's
okay.
another big thing that I am able to
That's
do
really
because I'm an
cool.
indie author and my
Yeah.
book's not on Kindle Unlimited, and that's one of the reasons I pulled it off was so that I could do that. So
A lot of people I've seen people be like they wish that they would get just an automatic
Yes.
copy of an ebook when they purchase a physical
Yes.
book. So that's really cool that you do that. So any final messages for people watching this right now?
I think just like thanks for being here. And like I love being in this space. I really feel like I'm like lucky to be here. And again, everything seems like a little bit fever dreamy where I'm like,
Yeah.
who, me? Like what? So I love interacting with readers. Definitely like I think one of the best parts about this is getting messages from readers, which really doesn't happen often. And I think it's because readers are like, why would they want to hear from me? But like, we want to hear from you.
Yeah.
Like we really, really do. It like makes our day, and it makes everything worthwhile. So like, I love hearing from readers. That would be my big thing. Yeah.
I think that's my favorite thing about what I've started doing is that this right here is literally my favorite thing about what I'm
Yeah.
doing. I get to talk to you guys and get to know you on such a deep level and get to share that with everyone else. Um, well, Thank you,
Yeah.
Haley,
Thank
for
you.
being here today. If you all want more from Haley, I will be sure to put all the links down in the description of this video. If you want to hear more from indie authors, then be sure to like and subscribe. And until then, happy reading.